Taylor, that's why I like that organization, and I'm part of one. Catholics for Catholics and Catholic Vote, because these are, again, serious Catholics that are trying to take our faith into the public square. So everybody needs to be moving in that direction, right?
That's right. And we should not be embarrassed to say, well, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman because God said so. There's nothing wrong with saying that. The liberals are quoting Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Marx and now all their favorite saints and saying, oh, all these slogans. And we should say, well, Jesus Christ, who rose from the dead, said this, marriage is a sacrament. And we should bring our strong faith to the public and not be ashamed.
Amen. And there are some voices out there that, I'm surprised that I'm quite happy with Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance. You got some good, strong Catholic voices out there. Carolyn Levitt, I've been told she's a Catholic as well. They are wearing their faith on their sleeve, and I'm glad to see that. Tell me, give me a quick definition or the difference between Christian nationalism or Christian patriotism.
Yeah, so in the last 10 years, there's been a big movement amongst Protestants for what's called Christian nationalism. And what they're kind of wanting to do is say, well, there were Puritans at the founding of America, so we need to go back to the Puritan vision of America. We all know that didn't work. It fizzled out. And so that's I think they're saying a lot of the same things we're saying, that Jesus Christ is the only way to transform culture. It's just they don't have natural law, and they don't have Augustine, and they don't have Aquinas. They don't really have the tool belt they need to build that. And so what I'm saying here is, instead of talking about nationalism, that's based on the Latin word natus, meaning born, where you were born. I mean, that's cool. Like I'm a nation, that's where I was born. But patria, fatherland, patriotism, that's honoring your fatherland. That's rooted in your father, the faith of your fathers. It's ultimately, in a supernatural way, rooted in God the Father, in the inter-Trinitarian society, which is what we're trying to break in here on earth. So I want to say, let's get away from Christian nationalism. Also, as soon as you say nationalism, people say, oh, Nazi, you're a Nazi, you're a Nazi. Right. So if we say Christian patriotism, we're actually appealing to Thomas Aquinas, our Catholic history, our Catholic tradition, and patriotism is a virtue. So we're rooting this into not just being born, but into virtue ethics, which is—
That makes sense. That's a great explanation. By the way, talk to me about the legend. Is it a legend or is it a fact, this whole notion of separation of church and state?
Man, I went to public high school. I went to public college. What we were taught in social studies and civics is, hey, America is the freest nation. We got liberties. You can do whatever you want, say whatever you want. And the cool thing about it is we have separation of church and state. We weren't really taught amendments or much more, but like separation of church and state, we were taught was like this really cool thing about America. And it's really bad. The wall of separation of church and state was invented by Thomas Jefferson. He used the term wall of separation of church and state. And Thomas Jefferson was a bad guy. He was consorting and fornicating with his slaves. We could even say raping the slaves. I mean, if they're not consenting. He was an immoral man. He wrote the Jeffersonian Bible, where he went through the New Testament and cut out the resurrection, cut out everywhere Jesus says he's divine, the Son of God, all of his miracles. And then he issues his own version of the Bible that says basically Jesus is just a guru. He's not the Son of God. And in his letters, he says, I deny the Trinity. I deny the deity of Christ. I deny the resurrection. So Thomas Jefferson, everybody hear this. Thomas Jefferson is to the left of AOC today.
Wow.
And so we're all going to sit around and we're going to applaud Thomas Jefferson as our best guy. No, Christians need to say, we're not doing the Thomas Jefferson immoral guy anymore. We need to look more to like Charles Carroll, John Adams. These are the guys who are talking about Christianity. They're talking about the family. They're talking about matrimony. They're moral men. They're good men. This is what we need to build on. So the separation of church and state is not in the Declaration. It's not in the Constitution. It is a concept that Thomas Jefferson popularized and has been taken by the left to push the church out of the state and create a secular society.
Taylor, in your research, is Thomas Jefferson, was he a practicing Protestant, a non-practicing Protestant, or was he a Freemason? What was he?
He said he was an Epicurean, which is an ancient Greek pagan philosophy.
Wow.
And he identified, I guess if you were going to identify him with a denomination in the 1700s, he was a deist. So he was not a church goer.
Got it. So talk to me about, what does a Christian form of government look like And who would we go to for that?
Well, the majority position would be a Christian monarchy. That's what we've seen. You've also seen other options. Pope Leo the 13th, who was the Pope, at the end of the 1800s, moving, into the next century. He said you can't have democracy, you can't have mixed governments, you can have republics. But he also this is something we kind of miss, is Pope Leo the 13th realized that in places like America, the population was tilting towards Catholicism. And so he knew, or he believed, that Catholics would then own the electorate. Unfortunately, what's happened, Jesse, you and I know this, where our Democrats have been voting for several decades on the wrong team.
Yeah, right.
And so that's one of the problems is, I think in the 1800s, the church was strong enough and the bishops were organized enough to lead people to vote in the right direction. And since the 1950s and 60s, I don't think the bishops and the pastors have led the flock. Because Jesse, you and I know, if the Catholics voted in a block, we would win every election.
There'd be no pro aborts, no pro homosexual marriages, no pro transgender, no pro men and women's sports. Yeah, we would sweep the nation.
We would. And so in that case, we could have a republic that is Catholic. Venice, I believe, was a Catholic republic. So it is possible. So in the book, I don't say, hey, we got to get a Christian king and an emperor and all that. I mean, maybe we do have that eventually. I'd love to have a Saint Louis IX, who was a great king. But there are other options. What I stress in the book is yes, this is not a book about what's the best form of government. This is a book about how do Christians voice themselves and present themselves in the public space to have Christian dominance and influence in society. You can put a Catholic king on the top, but if everybody hates God, it doesn't matter, right? It's not a win, right? What you have to have is the people loving Christ. And then if we're the majority, we set the family rules, and we should do that. We should say abortion is evil. It's illegal. Pornography is illegal, and so on and so forth.
If you like the message of Virgin Most Powerful Radio, type in under comments, Jesus is King.